Welcome to the Different Living channel. Today we will explore an inspiring story. The sun has not yet risen. The dim light of the early morning covers the small village. In the old kitchen of a tiled roof house, Mr. 2, a 70-year-old man, is busy preparing for the new day. His thin, calloused hands gently arrange the fresh vegetables just picked from the garden into a large basket. The green bundles of water spinach, some shiny eggplants and a few small squash are neatly arranged, waiting for him to go to the market to sell. Mr. 2's life is not luxurious. At this age, he should be resting, but he still wants to work, do some work to relieve stress, and have some money to help his children. He often tells himself that whenever someone advises him to rest, he lives alone in a small house. His wife has passed away for a long time. His children all work far away. Every morning, he woke up early, pedaled his old bicycle carrying a basket of vegetables to the market, joining the bustling life of the traders. For him, the market was not only a place to make a living, but also a place to chat and interact with old friends. That morning, like every other day, Mr. 2 carefully checked the basket of vegetables, put it on the bicycle he had been using for many years, and pedaled out onto the street. The cold morning wind caressed his wrinkled face, but he still felt warm inside. When passing through the main road near the market, Mr. 2 gently tightened the steering wheel carefully, steering the bike past the cars parked close together. Suddenly, when he was about to turn into a small alley, his bike wobbled. Crash! The sound of collision startled him. The bike lost balance. His basket of vegetables fell, and several bunches of vegetables and eggs rolled on the road. He turned around and saw a shiny black car parked on the side of the road. A long scratch clearly visible on the body of the car. Mr. 2 stood still for a moment, his heart pounding, not because of pain but because of fear. The car looked very expensive. He knew he had just caused a big problem. "Oh my God, how did I hit such a luxurious car?" he muttered, his hands shaking as he picked up the bunches of vegetables scattered on the ground. While he was still confused, the car door opened. A well-dressed young man stepped out, his face full of anger. He looked at the scratch on the car, then turned to Mr. 2, his voice harsh. "What the hell are you doing?" Mr. 2 lowered his head, his voice soft. "Young man, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'll pay for it." "Do you think you can pay for it? Do you know how much this bike costs?" he interrupted, his voice getting louder and louder. Passers-by started to stop, looking at the argument. Mr. 2 felt his face burning, both embarrassed and worried. He quickly said, "I'm sorry. It's just that my bike slipped. Just tell me how much it costs to fix it. I'll try to collect the money to pay for it." But his apology seemed to only make the man more upset. He walked over, pointed at his face. "Collect money? When will you collect it? You have to take responsibility for your mistake. You're old. Why don't you stay home and rest? Why bother others on the street?" Those words were like a knife cutting into Mr. 2's heart. He could only lower his head, his hands trembling as he picked up the bundles of vegetables and the broken egg. In the midst of the tense situation, a female voice came from behind. "What's all the noise? If you have something to say, say it clearly. Why are you yelling at an elder like that?" All eyes turned. A noble, well-dressed woman stepped out from behind the car. Her eyes shone with severity mixed with calmness. She walked forward, a designer handbag hanging in her hand, her high heels clicking rhythmically on the road. Her gaze swept over the scene, a scratched luxury car, a skinny old man bending down to pick up some fallen vegetables, and a curious crowd standing around. She frowned slightly, her voice low but powerful. "What's going on here? Young driver, you just scolded Mr. 2. Don't you know how to behave? He's old. It's normal to make a mistake." The young driver turned to her. His face immediately changed. The rude look disappeared, replaced by respect. He bowed politely. "Ma'am, this old man scratched your bike on his bicycle. I was just handling it." "What kind of handling is this that you're so loud?" She looked at him, her eyes not hiding her displeasure. The driver was embarrassed, not daring to say more. Seeing that, she turned to Mr. 2, her voice softer. "Sir, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" Mr. 2 looked up, his eyes red from pressure and embarrassment. He shook his head, his voice trembling. Thank you. I'm fine. I just accidentally scratched the bike. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. She looked at Mr. Tu for a moment and then nodded slightly. Her eyes softened but still kept a serious look as she turned to the driver. This car is only scratched but not seriously. Why are you scolding him like that? Don't you know how to behave? He's old. It's normal to make a mistake. We need to solve this problem. But not by bullying the elderly. The driver bowed his head and mumbled, Yes. I'm sorry. I'm a bit hot-tempered. The woman sighed, shook her head as if dissatisfied, then turned to the crowd watching. Everyone, please don't stand here anymore. I'll handle this. The people standing around began to disperse. But no one left completely. They just stepped back a little, their eyes still focused on the conversation. She looked at Mr. Tu and smiled slightly. Sir, please calm down. I'm not the type of person who makes things difficult for you. It's just a small scratch. But can you tell me everything so I can understand better? Mr. Tu breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that her words were a great comfort. He bowed his head and explained, I went to the market early this morning. My bike slipped and hit your car. I didn't mean it. I really didn't mean it. If you need to fix your bike, I'll try to collect money to pay for it. I know it's my fault. The woman listened attentively, occasionally nodding but not interrupting Mr. Tu. After listening, she smiled slightly. Sir, don't worry like that. I see that you're very honest and responsible. This bike is only slightly scratched. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. However, the young driver still seemed annoyed and said, But sister, it's his fault anyway. If we let it go so easily, what will others think? What if someone else damages the car in the future and then apologizes and that's it? She looked serious and her voice became harsh. Enough. Mistake is mistake, but you are not allowed to use that attitude to talk to the old man. Do you know how old he is? Do you know what respecting the elderly means? Her sharp words made the driver fall silent. The crowd around them whispered. Their eyes turned from sympathy for Mr. Tu to admiration for the woman. Someone in the crowd spoke up, This lady is so right. It's rare to see anyone who still has such respect for the elderly these days. Hearing this, Mr. Tu felt both comforted and guilty for causing trouble. He hesitated and added, Thank you for understanding. But it's my fault anyway. Just tell me how much it costs to fix the car. I'll try. Before he could finish his sentence, the woman gently raised her hand to stop him. No need. Sir, I don't need money to fix the car. But do you have children and grandchildren? Can you call them here so we can discuss a solution? Mr. Tu nodded, took out an old phone from his pocket, and shakily dialed a number. Hoang. It's Dad. Come right away to the main road near the market. Okay, Dad has a problem. He needs your help. On the other end of the line, a young man's worried voice rang out. What's the matter? Dad, are you okay? I'll be right there. When he hung up, the woman smiled and said calmly, We'll wait for your son to come and talk. Don't worry, there's a solution to everything. Mr. Tu nodded slightly, his heart gradually feeling more secure. But he did not know that the appearance of his son would bring an unexpected turn to this story. Less than 20 minutes after Mr. Tu called, a motorbike sped over at a fairly fast speed. The driver was Mr. Hoang, Mr. Tu's only son. Mr. Hoang quickly stopped the motorbike, took off his helmet and ran towards the crowd standing around the luxury car. Dad, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? He asked while hurriedly checking Mr. Tu's body, his face clearly showing worry. Mr. Tu shook his head, his voice sad. I'm okay. I just accidentally scratched someone else's car. I'm sorry, but the driver said he had to pay for the repair. I called you to come and help me. I don't know what to do. Hearing that, Hoang turned to look at the car. The long scratch was clearly visible on the shiny paint. But what caught his attention more was the driver's unpleasant attitude. Unable to control his anger, he shouted, The car was just scratched a little bit and you made such a big deal out of it. This is my father. He already apologized. Isn't that enough? Why are you scolding him so badly? The driver frowned, intending to refute, but the woman standing next to him quickly raised her hand to stop him. She calmly looked at Hoang. her eyes sharp but no less calm. Are you the old man's son? Hoang nodded, his face still angry. Yes, I am the old man's son. This matter is my father's fault. But your driver's attitude was too much. Are you the owner of the car? If you want to fix the car, I'm willing to pay, but I don't accept them bullying my father. The woman smiled softly, a smile that was both gentle and intelligent. Calm down. I'm the car owner, not the driver. I had absolutely no intention of bullying you. You've apologized very sincerely and I don't see this as too big of a deal to make a fuss about. Her words were like a bucket of cold water that calmed Hoang's anger. He silently looked at her with a scrutinizing gaze and nodded. If you say so. I thank you, but my father will still take responsibility. We will pay for the car repair for you. Mr. Tu quickly pulled his son's hand, his voice full of worry. Hoang. Father said he didn't do it on purpose. I'm not making things difficult for him. Don't be too nervous. But Hoang still kept a serious expression. He turned to look at the woman, his eyes full of determination. My father did something wrong. I don't want him to be known as someone who caused trouble and then didn't take responsibility. Just give me a quote to repair the car. I'll take care of it. The woman smiled lightly, shook her head. You seem to be a straightforward and responsible person. But I repeat, this is not necessary. This scratch is not worth me having to fix. More importantly, the attitude of everyone here is what needs to be talked about. She turned to look at the driver. Her eyes became cold. You know, I don't like people who behave disrespectfully. I've told you so many times. Never use an arrogant attitude towards the elderly. You disappoint me. The driver lowered his head, not daring to say anything more. The atmosphere around became silent. Suddenly, the woman turned to look at Mr. Tu and gently bent down to pick up the bunches of vegetables that had fallen. These are your labor. Let me compensate you for the spoiled eggs and vegetables. Mr. Tu quickly waved his hand, shook his head. No need. I've already worked on your car. Now you're compensating me. That's really not right. But she was still determined. She took out a large bill from her wallet, gave it to Mr. Tu. You just take it. This is not the money to fix the car, but my compensation for your effort. Just consider it as me buying these vegetables and eggs. The crowd around them whispered. Some admired the woman's kindness. Others were surprised by the way she handled the situation. Hoang stood watching, feeling his heart soften. He bowed his head and said to the woman, Thank you for not making things difficult for my father. I was too angry today. I hope you will forgive me. In short, the story of Mr. Tu reminds us that kindness and respect are always core values. No matter the circumstances. From Mr. Tu, we learn honesty and responsibility. From the woman, the lesson of kindness and how to treat everyone fairly. When facing difficulties, choose to act kindly. A little sympathy can not only ease the situation but also sow the seeds of faith in people. Life will be more beautiful when each of us lives with kindness. Because small actions sometimes create big changes. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. If you find it interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment for me. Goodbye and see you again.